Welcome back to Bunny Trails, everyone. I'm Dan Pugh.
And I'm Shauna Harrison. This week is a retro episode. At the Crossroads is episode 187 and first aired on March 29th, 2023.
Before we jump into the episode, we want to give a special thanks to Mary Halsig Lopez, Pat Rowe, JGP, and all of our patrons. We could not make this show without you. And for the rest of you, it's free to join the community. We are on Patreon. That's patreon.com/bunnytrailspod.
Enjoy!
Welcome to Bunny Trails, a whimsical adventure of idioms and other turns of phrase. I'm Dan Pugh.
And I'm Shauna Harrison. Each week, we take an idiom or other turn of phrase and try to tell the story from its entry into the English language to how it's used today. Have you ever hit a moment in your life when you must make a choice, and whatever decision you make will determine the rest of your life? You get to choose, but whatever direction you go, the other path will forever be cut off from you. Some call it a tipping point or the moment of truth. Regardless of the moment, the crux of the situation is that you stand at a crossroads.
That sounds actually way more dramatic than I think I've ever heard "at a crossroads" be used before. Have I ever been in that moment? No, I can honestly say I can't think of a single moment where I looked in front of me and said, I can go left or I can go right, and it will forever change my life to whichever way I go. Now, can I look back and think of moments in which I was in that situation? Yes. I definitely, with the benefit of hindsight, realize I was at a crossroads.
Fair enough. I'm a chronic overthinker, so I can think of at least once when I knew that the decision I was going to make, whichever way, was definitely going to alter my life. However, there's only one that I remember actually in that moment. So yeah, for sure. I didn't think about it that way either, but now that I'm thinking back, I'm like, oh man, that's happened multiple times. I've made a decision that altered my life. Well, to be at a crossroads means that one faces a decision that will have a major impact and cannot be changed once made. Collins Dictionary states, quote, "If you say that something is at a crossroads, you mean that it has reached a very important stage in its development where it could go one way or another," end quote. Before we look at the history, a quick note of thanks and some intrigue to start us off. Our patron, Pat Rowe, recently talked with Dan and I about a guitarist who claimed to have sold his soul to the devil at a crossroads in exchange for his talent. It got me thinking about the association of Faustian pacts and the location of a crossroads. Why at a crossroads? Well, I went down a bunny trail and ended up needing to find out about this phrase and where it actually originated. Not surprisingly, the term crossroads didn't start with the idea of a decision to be made. Oxford English Dictionary tells us that, established in the early 1700s, crossroads, in the form of two separate words, cross plus road or roads, was a term used to describe, quote, a road crossing another or running across between two main roads, a byroad, end quote. We also find the definition, quote, the place where two roads cross each other, the place of intersection of two roads, also called the crossroads or a four-cross road, end quote. Crossroads were quickly recognized as a place of interest. This is where all the activity happens. People set up shops at the crossroads. It's where they met up with others because it was easily identifiable and relatively equidistant from their various locations. As a result of natural traffic and the ease of a crossroad being a meeting place, that's generally where all the action took place during travels. Here's an example from the work Travels Through Spain in the years 1775 and 1776, in which several monuments of Roman and Moorish architecture are illustrated by accurate drawings taken on the spot.
God, I gotta love titles back then. It's just like, I love how all of the keywords, they were like search engine optimization all the way in their titles. They just completely nailed it in 1775.
All right, this one was written by Henry Swinburne and published in 1779. Quote, all the Mancha before us seemed to be a bare corn country, ugly and tedious beyond expression. For my part, unless it be to look out at a venta or peep about for an adventure at the meeting of the crossroads, I intend sleeping all the way to Madrid." End quote. People also recognized that the activity at the crossroads was sometimes risky or posed a threat. Let's take this one last aside before moving on. Oxford English Dictionary lists another phrase, along with the use of the word dirty as an adjective with this definition, quote, "dirty, that stains the honor of the persons engaged, dishonorably, sordid, base, mean, or corrupt, despicable. Colloquial phrase, dirty work at the crossroads." End quote.
Oh, how interesting. Dirty work at the crossroads. I don't think I've ever heard that before.
Well, they also provide an example of the phrase. P.G. Wodehouse, or Sir Pelham Grenville Wodehouse, in the 1914 work Man Upstairs, writes, quote, "A conviction began to steal over him that in some way he was being played with, that some game was afoot which he did not understand, that, in a word, there was dirty work at the crossroads." End quote.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
That.
Yeah, I can see it now, but
Yeah.
I don't think I'd ever noticed it as it being a specific phrase.
I hadn't either. So here is one more item that I want to cover, the term cross path. The example of this term that I've selected comes from the work The Malefactor's Register, or the Newgate and Tyburn Calendar, containing the authentic lives, trials, accounts of executions, and dying speeches of the most notorious violators of the laws of their country, who have suffered death and other exemplary punishments from the year 1700 to Lady Day 1779, to the midsummer sessions of next year. This was published in 1779. The excerpt comes from a section titled The Extraordinary Lives and Transactions of Richard Coyle and John Richardson, who were executed for the murder of Captain Benjamin Hart. Quote, "With regard to Coyle, we do not hear that he had been guilty of any notorious crime, but that for which he suffered. But the life of Richardson was such a continued scene of irregularity, deception, fraud, and vice as is almost unequaled. His treachery to the many unhappy women of whom he pretended to be enamored was alone deserving of the fate which finally fell to his lot. His conduct respecting these should afford a hint of caution to young women to be on their guard against the insidious artifices of men, while his behavior from the first embarking in life to his final exit should teach each one who reads the narrative of his life that the utmost artifice will fail to supply the place of honesty, and that the man of abandoned principles, while he thinks he is traveling the high road of pleasure, is but seeking the cross path which leads to destruction." End quote. All right, back to the meaning we're focused on today. Oxford English Dictionary gives the following definition, quote, "Crossroads, figurative, usually plural. A point at which two or more courses of action diverge, a critical turning point." End quote. The earliest use confirmed in print, according to Oxford English Dictionary, is from the 1795 work by Samuel Jackson Pratt, titled Gleanings Through Wales, Holland, and Westphalia. Quote, "Join with me, that they may speedily be conducted from the crossroads of life." End quote. I found a rather intense and eloquent usage of the phrase in a work from 1852. The piece, titled Rising Generationism, was published in Hogg's Instructor, a Scottish periodical.
I love that they're using isms in 1852. Generationism. Oh my goodness, I love it so much. This is my favorite thing to have just discovered.
Quote, "The beautiful days of his youth turned round today as specters and drew him back again to that bright morning on which his father first placed him at the crossroad of life, which on the right hand leads by the sun path of virtue into a wide, peaceful land full of light and of harvests, and full of angels, and which on the left hand descends into the moleways of vice, into a black cavern full of down-dropping poison, full of aiming serpents, and of gloomy, sultry vapors."
I don't know what a sultry vapor is, but I might be interested.
It sounds scary, honestly. I'm not sure. Like, maybe fun, but maybe bad.
Wait, does sultry mean something different in this context?
That's a good question. I did not look at that, but it might.
Because I don't know what the mole ways of vice are either, but there are a lot of vices that I'm actually pretty partial to. So I don't
Yeah.
know, maybe.
I could have read even more of this, but it's one of those that's written in such lengthy sentences that you can't really cut out, but it was definitely this guy was at the end of his life and was seriously regretting the decisions he'd made and was, I think, scared of maybe some sort of comeuppance he would be facing. I'm not sure, but yeah. In the April 13th, 1895 edition of the News and Observer out of Raleigh, North Carolina, we find the phrase in a series of poems that begins, quote, "Human existence is, after all, very like a tortuous country road, with slopes to climb and valleys to leisurely travel, with here green fields of plenty to enjoy, and there marshlands of temptation and danger to avoid, and with crossroads and four corners every now and then to confuse and possibly to mislead the traveler. Some of us fail to climb the hills, some fall asleep in the valleys, and still others wander off and are lost in the marshes, morasses. But to the great majority of mankind, the crossroads are the only really difficult points to be passed." End quote.
I mean, I don't know if that's meant to be metaphorical or if it's just because most people aren't climbing mountains or valleys, but are instead sticking to the roads.
Oh, yeah. So there are just more people on the road. It doesn't have anything to do with the difficulty.
It's just a law of large numbers at this point.
An article in the Washington Times, July 6th, the 1902 edition, out of Washington, D.C., discusses a popular dramatist of the time named Myron Leffingwell, great name, and a series of related performances. Quote, "The Dawn of Freedom, a play dealing with the conditions in Cuba during the Spanish-American War, will be remembered here, having been produced by a capable company, headed by Paul Gilmore. A dainty farce, The Summer Girl, The Crossroads of Life, a melodrama, and From the East to the West are a tribute to Mr. Leffingwell's versatility in playwriting." End quote.
Leffingwell. Yeah, I mean, it sounded like it'd be a good one to say, and now it feels good in my mouth, too. Mr. Leffingwell.
You just had to get it.
Myron Leffingwell.
Yeah, Myron with an M-Y-R-O-N. Myron Leffingwell.
Myron Leffingwell.
And I think if I ever have a cat, I'll name my cat
Oh my
that.
goodness. Yes, I mean, I'm kind of partial to Reginald, but Reginald Leffingwell is also just feels very good.
That's
so yes,
good.
you can name your cat Myron Leffingwell, and I will name my dog Reginald Leffingwell.
That's so
Esquire.
perfect. In the Pine Bluff Daily Graphic from July 6th, 1910, out of Pine Bluff, Arkansas, we find an article with a familiar theme. It is titled, "Two Roads to Take, Violet. Evangelist declares one leads to happiness and other to destruction." This article shared some of the evangelist E. Violet's words. Quote, "Jesus has put his proposition so plain before us that none of us need take the wrong road. We stand tonight a multitude of people at the crossroads of life and death, and it is for us to choose which road we shall take." End quote. This sounds like it was one of those like all night, all day evangelizing, and man, I'm not up for that. I would have fallen out of the window, like. Well, religion is a big part of human existence, so it isn't surprising to see a phrase like this one associated with it. In the Weekly Iberian, July 5th, 1919 edition from New Iberia, Louisiana, there was an article which included the phrase, and it combined the political and religious concepts here. Quote, "The truth of the words spoken by the great founder of Christianity, that he shall be greatest who is the servant of all, has been proven to apply to nations as well as individuals. To live in a house by the side of the road and be a friend to man has become the desire of every properly balanced individual in our social existence. And among nations, an inclination has sprung up to dwell in the crossroads of life, where they may give assistance to those in need." End quote.
I mean, I love the idea, but even this was 1919, but I'm thinking, I bet in 1919 there were people who were just like, man, I'm just trying to survive.
Right. This is a lovely sentiment. I just
Right. Yeah, I
yeah.
love the sentiment, but the reality probably is not the same.
That this guy lives in Mayberry or whatever, Possibly my favorite little nugget is seen in the Wood County Reporter, June 2nd, 1921, out of Grand Rapids, also known as Wisconsin Rapids, Wisconsin. This was in one of those little advice and adages type of sections. Quote, "The crossroads of life is a good place to stop and think." End quote.
Yeah, that I love that. It's just you have to
It's
know that
safe.
you're at the crossroads of life to be able to stop and think. And
Right.
that I think may be where the trick is. It is oftentimes not so obvious.
At the Crossroads has been used by some big names, politicians, musicians, and world leaders. Here are a few of these examples. Herbert Hoover, 31st President of the United States, and this was from 1929 to 1933, used this term in a message to the National Foreign Trade Council on May 4th, 1932. Quote, "Please extend my cordial greetings to the 19th National Foreign Trade Convention and the 9th Pacific Foreign Trade Convention in joint conference in Honolulu. The work of these foreign trade conventions is an example of sound cooperative leadership and is of outstanding value at this juncture. It is especially appropriate that our foreign traders meet with our friends and neighbors from Canada and across the Pacific Ocean to devise means of coordination in the great enterprise of international trade. At the crossroads of the Pacific, with whose shores the destiny of mankind is becoming each year increasingly concerned, your service to American foreign trade will be notably advanced by this important meeting." End quote. Now, in this, he was using a figurative meaning of the term crossroads, but referring to a place that was essentially serving more as a path that would connect other paths. However, there are many who believe that Herbert Hoover never used any word accidentally, and the theory is that the word crossroads would have been very carefully selected. Now, that's all conjecture, but this speech does ring with the idea of a big decision being made. I was able to find much of this information thanks to the American Presidency Project, a nonprofit, nonpartisan source of presidential documents on the internet. They are hosted at the University of California, Santa Barbara, and currently make available 152,367 presidential and non-presidential records. I always think that work that people do for these kinds of sites are awesome. Like, that's a whole lot, and it makes things easier for researching for sure. So the next president here, I got that information from as well. So Hoover wasn't the only president to use our phrase. Franklin D. Roosevelt, 32nd President of the United States, so this was 1933 to 1945, announced Proclamation 2425, a selective service registration, and this was on September 16th, 1940.
The selective service registration is that every male over 18 has to register for potential draft.
Yeah. A portion of Provision 7 of the Act reads, quote, "America stands at the crossroads of its destiny. Time and distance have been shortened. A few weeks have seen great nations fall. We cannot remain indifferent to the philosophy of force now rampant in the world. The terrible fate of nations whose weakness invited attack is too well known to us all. We must and will marshal our great potential strength to fend off war from our shores. We must and will prevent our land from becoming a victim of aggression. Our decision has been made." End quote. Well, we're ready to move on to our modern uses of crossroads, but we're going to do that right after we say a quick thank you to our sponsors.
Well, this episode is sponsored by our amazing patrons on Patreon. You can help support this educational art form and get awesome perks along the way. Tiers start at $3 a month, which get you our polls and community-only discussions, early access to the podcast, and the behind-the-scenes video for each episode, so you can watch along as we make the show. At $10, you'll also get original digital artwork from Shauna once a month, featuring exclusive art about an idiom or other turn of phrase. At $15, you'll get personal on-air recognition like Pat Rowe does every episode. And of course, huge thanks goes to the top spot among our patrons, our Dean of Learning, Mary Halsig Lopez. Thank you so much to Mary and all of our patrons. If you want to help create Bunny Trails week after week, whatever your budget, we are Bunny Trails Pod on Patreon. That's patreon.com/bunnytrailspod.
One of the most well-known uses of the term crossroad is from the incredible song Crossroad Blues by Robert Johnson, which originally came out in 1936. Normally, I'd place this in the historical uses. However, this song and the story of Robert Johnson supposedly selling his soul to the devil in exchange for musical genius was brought into the modern mind by a popular TV show. In the supernatural episode Crossroad Blues, which aired in 2006, the people of a small town have been selling their souls to a crossroad demon. Robert Johnson is basically what the episode is built on, and here's a little bit of trivia from IMDb. Quote, Robert Johnson was a young and by all accounts untalented boy who, in the early 1920s, when he was in his late teens, would hang around bars listening to the blues musicians of the day. He dreamed of being able to play like them. From accounts of his contemporaries, he disappeared for a few months, and when he resurfaced, he could play blues better than everyone. He shot to fame almost overnight. His music does feature many occult references, and the legend grew that he had sold his soul to the devil in return for talent and fame. He died at 27, under mysterious circumstances. There are several different accounts of his death, and he left behind at least 3 women claiming to be his widow. It is unknown if or where he was buried. To this day, he remains an artistic legend, and those who remembered him maintained till they died that they had never seen anything like him before or since. End quote.
Oh, interesting. I wonder, did he actually die at 27? Lots of famous artists who struggled and were troubled died at 27.
Yeah.
I don't believe that there's anything occult or supernatural associated with that, but just interesting.
Yeah. In the TV show there, Supernatural, if you sell your soul, the kind of basic bargain there is that you get 10 years with whatever thing, and then you get dragged away to hell after that 10 years. So
I might sell my soul at 102 or something, but I don't think
at 17 though is
yeah.
or
at 17 I made lots of stupid decisions, so who knows.
Robert Johnson's music acts as the primary soundtrack for this episode, which features the songs Crossroad Blues and Hellhound on My Tail. By the way, his music absolutely holds up, so go listen to it. As for the song itself, Crossroad Blues, there is no specific mention of a deal or a devil, but you can infer as much as you'd like. The song opens, quote, I went down to the crossroads, fell down on my knees. Down to the crossroads, fell down on my knees. Asked the Lord above for mercy, take me if you please. I went down to the crossroads, tried to flag a ride. Down to the crossroads, tried to flag a ride. Nobody seemed to know me. Everybody passed me by. And the song ends, you can run, tell my friend Boy Willie Brown. Run, you can run, tell my friend Boy Willie Brown. And I'm standing at the crossroads, believe I'm sinking down. End quote. You might be asking if this is all referring to the concept of a huge decision or just the physical location of a crossroads. Well, the idea of making a deal with the devil at a place where roads cross one another is basically the ultimate level of symbolism. Once you've made the pact, there's no turning back. There's an argument to be made that this takes place at a crossroads because it is a crossroad and it couldn't be done at any other location. Robert Johnson is apparently synonymous with Crossroads for many people. When I ran a search for artwork related to Crossroads, a number of pieces with only Robert Johnson referenced showed up in the results. One I particularly liked is an acrylic on canvas painting by Magdalena Glowacka from Poland. It was originally painted in 2014, and it's featured on Saatchi Art. It is a beautiful portrait, in my opinion, of Robert Johnson. The book Crossroads of Conjure, The Roots and Practices of Granny Magic, Hoodoo, Brujeria, and Curanderismo, written by Katrina Rasbold, was released in 2019. And here's a note from the publisher. Quote, explore the fascinating world of Southern folk magic. Featuring an introductory look at granny magic, hoodoo, brujeria, and curanderismo in the American South, Crossroads of Conjure provides a fresh perspective on folk magic. This authentic and powerful book demonstrates how these systems are interconnected, celebrates their sustainability, and dispels the myths and misunderstandings about them. Learn about each path's beliefs, practitioners, history, and how its traditions are carried on in modern society. Discover the techniques practitioners use for healing, survival, protection, and more. This entertaining and informative exploration of folk magic also helps you determine which practice resonates with you the most. End quote. Crossroads by Laurel Hightower was published in 2020, and the publisher shares, quote, how far would you go to bring back someone you love? When Chris's son dies in a tragic car crash, her world is devastated. The walls of grief close in on Chris's life until one day, a small cut on her finger changes everything. A drop of blood falls from Chris's hand onto her son's roadside memorial, and, later that night, Chris thinks she sees his ghost outside her window. Only, is it really her son's ghost, or is it something else, something evil? Soon, Chris is playing a dangerous game with forces beyond her control in a bid to see her son, Trey, alive once again. End quote. That one has kind of a, I don't know, mystery thriller vibe or something. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, it sounds like it is playing on emotions that I don't want to think about, so I'll pass.
That's a good point. It's a little probably intense. Crossroads is a photograph by Dasha Piers from Finland, and it's featured on Saatchi Art as well. The description reads, quote, from my project Blues. Inspired by the bright northern sun, which never leaves the skies from April to September, white Nordic days and nights are magical. They bring peace, new ideas, but most importantly, new hopes for the future, as bright as it can be. End quote. I'm not sure that I'm up for that. My sleep schedule is already rough enough when I have like the night-day thing happening for me. But I did think this was really neat. The photograph shows a person standing on the beach looking out at the water, and it's like you can feel the thought happening there, so it's kind of cool. Being at a crossroads can be a daunting and emotional experience. It's a moment when we're faced with a crucial decision that could change the course of our lives. We may feel overwhelmed, uncertain, and even fearful of making the wrong choice. But it's also a time of opportunity and growth, a chance to reflect on our values and priorities and determine what truly matters to us. Ultimately, being at a crossroads reminds us that life is full of choices, and each one we make shapes the person we become. That's about all the time we have for today. If you have any thoughts on the show or pop culture references we should have included, send us an email, bunnytrailspod@gmail.com, or comment on our website, bunnytrailspod.com.
All right, it is patron poll time. Recently, we posed this question to our patrons. What is your favorite type of pasta? Shauna, did you know there are over 300 types of pasta?
Not at all. I would have guessed like 30-something, or
Yeah,
I don't know.
I definitely would not have thought over 300. I mean, I would have thought, a lot, but 300 is a lot more than I would have thought. I don't know how many I thought there were. I'd never given it a lot of consideration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anyway, for our patrons, we listed the 10 most common types worldwide, and the winner among our patrons is Angel Hair.
Okay, our drums. The drum thing is so long.
I know. I was like, boy, that drum roll needs to stop already. My goodness. Well, okay. Anyway, the drum roll kind of took over there, but yes, Angel Hair. Angel Hair pasta was the number one.
Angel Hair pasta. I do love Angel Hair pasta.
Well, in a tie for second is spaghetti and fusilli.
Oh, okay.
I assume that's how you say that. I'd never heard
fusilli,
of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jan shared what I consider to be good advice, saying, quote, fusilli holds the sauce, great in pasta salads, and often comes in different colors, end quote.
Well, Mary said, quote, spaghetti is springy and fun. You get to twirl it or suck it up through your lips. It works with just about any sauce and has a great flavor on its own, end quote.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, thanks, Mary. What a evocative description.
Like, whoo, my, okay.
Saucy.
Jeez. We're not going to be able to finish recording. Well, personally, I think lasagna is my favorite dish. At least when I make it, it's just too delicious to argue about, in my opinion. But that being said, angel hair is my fave pasta. And I haven't the slightest clue why. Like, it's like there's nothing to it, but I don't know. I think it's because it really lets lighter sauces kind of stand out and be the highlight. But okay, so I'm going to add, though, a note about gnocchi because I think it deserves some attention for its amazingness as well. I like it with like a roasted garlic and basil tomato sauce. It's also fantastic thrown into a stew with like squash and sausage. Gnocchi is like bonus starch in every bite. I don't know why. I love how dense and chewy it is, especially if it is sweet potato gnocchi.
All right. I don't actually know if that's how that word is said or not, but I'm going to take your word for it.
Gnocchi, gnocchi. It's probably gnocchi. Maybe.
You know what? I'm not. I do believe that, yes, I believe it is gnocchi, but
gnocchi.
I don't quote me on that.
I said that once. That's the only time that pronunciation will ever happen right. I apologize for all of the mispronunciation of that fantastic word.
Yeah, you did say it like 9 times.
Great.
Well, if you want to join our polls, head over to patreon.com/bunnytrailspod, where patrons at all levels can participate in our weekly silly polls that mean absolutely nothing and aren't even scientifically valid. But sometimes you learn something, and they're fun to talk about. Thanks for joining us. We will talk to you again next week. Until then, remember, words belong to their users.